We had a strong start this morning. It fizzled out mid-morning, but we're back up 1% again. It really seems a bit directionless at this stage.
It is a bit directionless. Very strong start. I think people were quite buoyed by some of the moves in the Asian market, but then came back down quite aggressively. Anglo's was up at I think around about the 243 level. Came all the way down again and now moving back up again. So yeah, very undecided, and I think people are just waiting for more results to come through. They're worried about Anglo's results tomorrow, whether there's going to be a dividend. So there's not too much happening overall, but quite wide swings during the day.
We're going to go back to Anglo's results in just a minute, but perhaps just taking a look at those US earnings results. They have been mostly better than expected, but we're also getting some economic data out at the same time. And we had US durable goods orders out yesterday, and those disappointing the market. So while on the one hand we have those strong results, on the other hand, the economic figures we're seeing coming out aren't quite as convincing, are they?
Yeah, the underlying economy is not recovering as quickly as people expect. And the results of the companies which have been slightly better, again, you have to take a look at those and see whether it's coming from just cost cutting and retrenchments that they're getting better numbers, or if it's really from new revenue and new revenue growth. So if we take a look at, I think it's Sprint Nextel, which is the third largest cell phone provider in America, their numbers were poor and they went into a loss. So it just showed you that the consumer and the consumer spending in the States still isn't recovering properly.
So if the underlying economy does remain weak, do you think we're going to be able to sustain this earnings growth we're seeing from companies going forward?
I don't think so, and the earnings growth the better than expected earnings is good for us now, but it's going to have to come through from revenue growth in the next quarter and the next half of the year. We're going to have to wait and see whether the interest rates in South Africa are going to come down to help our earnings as well.
Well, in that case, do you think the markets have moved too quickly and got ahead of themselves a little bit here?
I feel that they have run a little bit ahead of themselves. People were expecting a bounce. We've got that bounce, but they're expecting a full V recovery, and I don't think we can get a full V recovery until the underlying market recovers and the consumer recovers. And I think we're going to have more of a W correction.
Now, you mentioned Anglo-American and results out tomorrow for the first half. Of course, we've seen the Anglo Platinum results, we've seen the De Beers results, we've seen the Kumba results. What are we expecting from Anglo-American tomorrow?
Well, on the Nedbank side, we expect earnings per share down about 70%. And then we do say there is a chance of a token dividend. They have got out of Hulamin in the last month, and they do have cash from Hulamin. And from that, possibly we can get a token dividend. Otherwise, a dividend of zero, and that will affect the price as well. I think if they do a dividend, it will be quite positive for the shares. Investors will think that their balance sheet is looking a little bit stronger. But it's quite interesting to see tomorrow how strong that balance sheet is looking, or how weak it's going to be looking.
And of course, it is a very difficult balancing act for Anglo-American, because we saw the disappointment when it passed on its full-year dividend in March. But at the same time, it really needs to maintain a strong balance sheet going forward, because Anglo Platinum is going to need cash. It's also got this unwanted bid from Xstrata at the moment. So it is going to be difficult for Anglo-American to balance all that out, isn't it?
It is very difficult. I mean, I think the amount of money that Amplat is eating up at the moment is putting pressure on them, and they've already extended their loans to Amplat. And obviously they have to protect themselves from Xstrata if Xstrata start to go into a volatile bid war with them and try to take them over on a more aggressive level. So they'll have to watch that as well. So they don't want too much price weakness in their share currently. So it is very difficult for them to get that balance correct.
And of course, apart from the dividend, which everybody's going to be looking to see if it's going to pay one, it's also the forward-looking statement, really, and the strategy that the company is going to employ going forward that's going to be closely watched, isn't it?
Definitely. We want to see if they feel that the underlying economy is improving, and whether whether the commodity prices that have improved over the last 2 months is going to be sustainable and improve further into the current year. Or similar to Billiton, what Billiton says is they feel that the restocking of China has actually ended, and they feel that commodities could stay at these levels and not necessarily improve too much from these levels. So it's something that we're looking at very closely, and we'll see whether the selling of Hulamin is going to go into the balance sheet or into acquisitions, which is quite interesting for us to look at as well.
Of course, we did have some results out this morning. We had SAPI reporting a 12 US cent loss for the third quarter, but it does say things are starting to improve. So perhaps the worst behind SAPI at this point.
It looks like it could be. That's a very challenging environment that they're working in. Their Emreal acquisition that was earlier in the year has shown good signs of recovery, and they've turned that business into a profit. Whether it's sustainable or not, we'll have to wait and see. and they've had very good cost cutting throughout the year. So they seem to be bottoming, and there seems to be a little bit of correction in the price of that coated paper. But a very difficult market, and again, they're looking for advertising to pick up and the underlying economies to pick up, really to get that business running properly. But maybe the worst is over.
Because we had positive results out from British American Tobacco. Its earnings up 25% for the first half. Of course, this is quite a defensive stock in difficult times, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Their brands are very strong. We've got Kent, Dunhill, Lucky Strike, and just a very good company. They're still paying a very good dividend, which has increased earnings very good as well. And obviously the only tobacco company on the exchange. I think generally in all portfolios, everybody should have some BTI in their portfolio.
How about the trading update from Liberty Holdings? Did you take a look at that?
Briefly looked over it. Very weak earnings from them. They're battling with the amount of policies that are going that aren't being paid, as well as people withdrawing money out of their policies, and it's affecting them quite heavily. And they can't see it improving until the end of the year. Another company saying that the outlook to the rest of the year is going to be very difficult and difficult times, and they only can see it recovering sometime in 2010, and they're not sure exactly where in 2010. So there's exuberance in the market. The underlying economy is not as good as everyone thinks, and a statement like this from Liberty just shows you how difficult the environment is.
And of course, we did have results up from short-term insurer Mutual and Federal yesterday, and it's really been hit by the same issues that Liberty has been, hasn't it?
Yes, well, Mutual and Federal getting a lot of claims coming through in a difficult environment. An example would be if your decoder broke, you would just go get a new decoder, whereas now they'll actually claim for that. So there's a lot of small claims coming through, as well as fraudulent claims coming through. And that's affecting the short-term insurers. On the life policy side, it's very similar. People are withdrawing money out of their life policies and are not paying those life policies. So those life policies are going into default, which affects the life insurers quite aggressively.